Thank you for setting this all up, Tyler. As you all know here, I mean, AI is changing things. We are here to talk to you all about what you need to know based on how it's changing things. So we'll do introductions in a second, but just to kick things off, Tyler, if you go off to the next slide here, I thought this stat was extremely alarming. Maybe 50% of consumers are using AI search during the awareness, consideration, and decision stages. That's by a study by McKinsey. And the AI search market's projected to influence hundreds of billions of revenue by 2028. I mean, you can see it now, right? Like the front door to how we find information, to how we find products and services is just totally changing. A lot of times you actually start with ChatGPT, where you used to start with Google, or you start with Grok, or you start with Gemini, or whatever other AI you're using. And your customers, your prospects are doing the same exact thing. AI search it's just changing everything as far as where the trust is formed with brands, which brands get a shot at the deal, and how companies speak, or need to speak to the ideal customer. It's also influencing, from an agency perspective, we see this all the time, how you should be measuring your performance. We could see that search traffic is declining, and we could see that that's a big reason for that is AI search, and it changes how you should prioritize your content. And so I'm going to pass off to Tyler here, who's going to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so today we're going to dive into what that change means to leaders and marketers who are trying to figure out how to navigate the shift and the dynamics and how they're being discovered. So we're going to look at what AI search and answer engine optimization, or AEO, actually is compared to SEO. And we're going to dig into the behaviors that are changing, what tactics work, and how you can reach users in this new normal. From there, we're going to identify metrics that put real data in your hands and inform decisions, and practical changes you can make with your team today. As Ben said, we'll do introductions a little in. So I'm Tyler Baber. I'm the managing director at BNP Engage. We are a B2B digital marketing and marketing services firm and part of BNP Media. And Ben?
I'm Ben Ladani, Chief Marketing Officer at BNP Media. Geek by trade, and very passionate about all things digital, all things marketing, and helping companies like you listening on how you can innovate and use AI to your advantage and from a marketing perspective.
Thank you, Ben. I'm excited to talk about this together. And hopefully if folks have questions and they drop them in the LinkedIn comments, we'll go through whatever questions we see in the comments at the end of this half hour. So let's zoom out. Let's start with what do we mean when we say AEO, and how is it different from SEO? So SEO, the old way, would be competing for a blue link on a results page. Now, answer engine optimization is competing to be part of the answer that AI gives the buyer. It's aligning your content and the footprint and your footprint so that the AI systems select you as a trustworthy source when they're synthesizing answers. And right now, these answers are showing up before traditional results. You know it, you see it when you Google search something. Right now, those overviews are showing up on over 13% of queries on Google, and that's only growing according to SEMrush from earlier this year. Google does give some guidance in their documentation to developers, and that's where a lot of the how do you navigate this comes from, is what does Google expect to see? What does ChatGPT or other tools expect to see? And what they're saying is these AI features, they're built on top of the existing indexing and ranking. So the fundamentals of SEO still matter: crawlability, site structure, quality. There's no magic trick that will jump you ahead of everyone else by just focusing on the SEO stuff. But you know what the old way looks like in practice. It's how you show up in a Google search. You identify the SEO keywords that fit your business. You create blog posts and content that wins ranking and gets click-throughs. Now, the user asks a question and they expect an answer. AI creates a synthesized paragraph that will name some tools on a question like this. And your site will only appear if AI already knows your expertise and can quote you. It's reshaping B2B discovery, it's compressing the research phase, and it's changing who makes the shortlist. The big takeaway there, though, is you could be the #1 organic search result for your target keywords and still technically be on page 2 behind the AI overviews. It's not a separate channel. It's the new logic layer on top of search, including your content, your PR, and your brand. So we're seeing how it's impacting behavior of users. It's one thing for Google to adopt this, and a year ago, we could make all the jokes we wanted about how Google's search overviews were garbage. But we're now seeing that it's shifting how decisions are made and how research occurs. So we're going to look at a couple examples that apply to businesses like yours. So let's look at Christy. She's a facility director. And before AI search, she would spend a lot of time researching across multiple sources when she needed a solution to a specific problem, like leakage detection for her cold storage facility. She would click into several sites, scan a lot of pages before deciding on a vendor. And after she had made the decision, she would validate that by diving deep on that selected vendor's resources. Now she's starting her search in ChatGPT with a scenario-based query like, how do I prevent refrigerant leaks in my facilities? She's getting paragraphs back and summarizing the risks, the best practices, and the AI is giving her a list of what to look for in a solution without her having to ask for that. She's asking follow-up questions in the chat before she clicks into a website to finalize her decision. What this means is that users are making decisions with fewer clicks. The first impression is the AI answer, not your homepage. It's that new front door that Ben was talking about at the start. Research is showing that these AI summaries meaningfully shape the attitudes and choices versus getting a standard list of links in Google results. Let's look at Carter, who's the co-owner of an OEM manufacturing company. If he's trying to get better visibility into sales performance and is looking to adopt a CRM, before he would research with general keyword-based searches, maybe read some comparison-based articles. He'd be willing to provide his email address in order to access lead magnets like an infographic or a webinar. Now, someone like him is going to be using his voice to talk to Google Gemini or ChatGPT about what software his team should use while he's eating his lunch from his phone. Because he uses the tool every day and it's connected to his ecosystem, he's getting tailored recommendations that are based on the information that AI already has about his company. So his results feel highly personalized and specific to his company size, locations, even things like the personalities of his team that he discusses with Gemini every day. He's getting a list of criteria for evaluation based on his unique personal pain points. What this means is if your content doesn't clearly articulate the pains and criteria, then AI is going to use when summarizing, like how do you help fix missed leads, delayed follow-ups, poor scheduling, then you don't even get mentioned, even if you rank somewhere down the page in traditional results. And last, let's look at Alan, who's a solution architect at a biotech company. He's seeking information about antimicrobial approaches for an ingredient his company is developing. And before, he would use research databases, read white papers, get really comfortable, familiar with compliance standards, technical guides. When he found vendor content, he would hold it at arm's length and cross-check it heavily before making decisions. Now he's using Claude, ChatGPT, Deep Research, tools like that to ask direct questions. He's asking for sources, and he'll click into those sources that most directly address his unique challenge. This can include research papers, but it could also include trade articles, vendor-supplied documents, maybe even more than his old way of researching. What this means is that AI systems will prioritize earned or third-party authority, and research backs this up. Structured technical content is brought into the answers that AI synthesizes. If the user's question is answered mostly by a competitor's content or a neutral third-party source and you're not cited or mentioned, you're just not in the mental shortlist. So what's common across these three buyers? They're all starting with questions, not keywords. They're all trusting a summarized answer first, and they're being selective when they click. And they're using AI to compress their research phase, not expand it. So the game is no longer rank for the keyword, it's be the best raw material for the answer. So let's talk about some tactics that work with for companies like yours to reach decision makers like Kristen, Carter, and Alan. So the old SEO playbook would focus on big, broad, ultimate guide content, targeting high volume keywords. You're looking for a big quantity. You're looking to show up for some long tail by showing up at the top in those broad keywords. Product pages that were tuned for SEO, not people. You'd have occasional thought leadership pieces in trade media as part of your backlink strategy. And then SEO reporting would focus on ranking, sessions, average CTR. These still matter for being found, but they're not enough for being selected in AI answer. With AI, the winning content starts with understanding your buyer's pain and context. So you want to know what risks do you and your product and service help your customer avoid. Address those head on. If you're helping with safety risk, compliance risk, lost revenue, wasted labor, failed audits, call out the problem as part of how you're listing how you solve it. Knowing that your user will help you tie their pain and the contextual factors back to the solution. AI search visibility favors content that clearly articulates the problem, like the risk, the instability, the compliance needs, the stakes, the cost of failure, the liability, the signs a buyer should watch out for, and the criteria for a good solution, what to ask for or demand from a supplier. You can really write the script on that if you're first to market for some of these problems and pain points. If your messaging doesn't speak to the buyer pain point, not just your features and your marketing slicks, then AI won't see you as relevant. And AI is rewarding the companies that make their marketing footprint more cohesive, not just bigger, but clearer and consistent across customer touchpoints. The AI engines are favoring breadth and consistency across different content sources. So your site, your white papers, your industry articles, your third-party mentions. That means your website and data sheets, technical briefs, your LinkedIn presence, your press mentions, your videos. They all should reinforce the same buyer-centered messages. And then AI is rewarding structured, snackable answers to real questions. So instead of one giant PDF, winning teams can create pages built around specific questions, short, like topic-sized, again, snackable content, clear headings and bullet points that are easy for AI and people to parse. This matches the research that's showing that AI answers favor content that's easy to extract and synthesize. Ben's got some other things that winning companies do.
Yeah, for sure, Tyler. I mean, and some of these that you're going to hear are basic marketing best practices that we've been preaching for years, but know your ideal customer is super important. So Tyler mentioned Carter doing that research and having all of his data from his company and about him loaded in to his AI while he's doing searches, and the AI using that information. So in order for you to reach the customer you really want, you have to know who you're after. You have to know who you're trying to talk to. So have those ideal customer profiles, those buyer personas. Make sure you do the homework on who it is that you're targeting. And then the messaging and brand consistency. But you want to make sure you're speaking the same way to the audience so that they know who you are when you come up in the results, right? I mean, if you think of this from the standpoint of just Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, any of your favorite coffee shops, they speak to you a certain way and they have a voice and a brand. When they show up in something that you're searching for, you know who it is. So that consistency becomes key. They're figuring out what questions need to be answered, and they're answering those questions. You can see this. One of my favorite examples is go search for a recipe. When you go search for a recipe online right now, you're going to get a result, especially with AI, that has all of the answers to the questions about that recipe baked into the output. What temperature do I cook this at? What ingredients do I need? All this type of stuff. So you really need to do the homework to get that bite-sized content in frequently asked questions and blogs and topic pages by first figuring out what those questions are that your ideal customer is going to ask from before they even know about you, and discovery through to awareness, consideration, decision, all of that.
I love that example, Ben, because there's no, I think, starker contrast in the difference between an AI overview and SEO than a recipe blog, right? Like what you needed to do to rank your recipes for SEO is so different here.
Exactly. And, to that point, people are using AI to come up with recipes, and those recipes are showing right up inside their AI results. Last couple pieces here, but own channel success. If you have, obviously, we're at a point now where every business should have a website. That's kind of a low bar, right? But making sure that you're consistently building that content on your website, on your social media, on your video channels, across all the things that you own, so that it's there on those own channels when the AI actually pulls that content in and cites it as a reference. Anybody that's a heavy AI user knows that you're getting a lot of references cited, and some users are clicking into that. That should be on your own channels, but you got to focus on the outside channels as well. So Tyler mentioned PR and sponsored content on trade publications. These are great ways to get inside communities that already exist with content, so that you're seen as a thought leader by that third-party information, or what's not owned, considered third-party from your perspective, and get those articles, those white papers, those podcasts, those ebooks, all based on your ideal customer profile and the questions that they have on those outside channels. And then lastly, quality over quantity. I mean, we're talking about this as far as lead generation. We're talking about this as far as content creation, but your measurement for success should go way beyond, am I showing up? It should go to the fact of, did I reach that ideal customer? Did they buy from me? What did they read? Are they engaging with the content that I've created in the way that I wanted? You measure that based on quality, not just those metrics that show only awareness or top of funnel type metrics. Tyler, speak a little bit more towards the metrics that really matter in AEO.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the metrics that matter. So measuring effectiveness here, obviously you still want some data to back up and know what's working and what's not, where to optimize. But we should shift the conversation from measuring rankings towards measuring impact, like you were just saying, Ben. So it's important not to ignore the old metrics. They still matter. They're just demoted. But instead of tying success to raw organic sessions or average click-through rate or ranking #1 for a vanity keyword, really what you'd want to emphasize here is problem-centric engagement. What's the traffic and engagement on the pages that are organized by buyer questions and pain points? The quality of the pipeline from those assets. What's the lead quality look like? What's your opportunity rate? What's your win rate? More than ever, the marketing and the sales metrics are being more tightly combined because of the amount of the consideration phase that's being done at the AI level. And then brand and authority signals. So a lot of this, if you've been doing marketing for 10, 20 plus years, it can feel like a shift back to the old metrics that we looked at, brand lift, K-score, things like that. But you can still get some of this from traditional SEO metrics if you're looking at search volume on branded terms, direct traffic trends, and references and mentions that are in third-party content. It feels a little weird to have been doing digital marketing for 10, 15 years and be talking about brand lift as a metric to look at, but that really is a reliable indicator of how you're showing up. And studies are showing that AI search's rise is changing click patterns and increasing the reliance on summaries. So traditional click-through rates are less reliable as North Star metrics. Trust and authority are more central, and really knowing who you're targeting and measuring the engagement of those users based on that problem-centric engagement at the page level is a really good shorthand for how you're performing. So what are some things that you can do right now to start making a difference? The first thing is identify what are those questions that you should show up for. It's not going to be a question of why should I choose company A? It's going to be what's the pain point that starts that research phase. You should ask your customer-facing team members, your execs, your sales, your service agents, your trade show marketers, what are the questions that they get asked every time? What are the 3 to 5 questions that you must own in your market? And are you clearly answering them for where an AI can see? And take those questions and search for them yourself. Search across Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT. You'll get a different answer each place, and chances are different people on your team will get different answers. Start comparing those results, and you'll start to understand, how is the question being asked by your ideal customer.
You'll also get, Tyler, variations of that question that you can use to make sure you refine out all of the different questions you should answer.
That's right. And so when you ask AI the question, you'll start to see what information do you need to have to show up. Do you have a clear, non-jargony explanation on your site? Are you answering in plain language that humans and the AIs that humans are trying to speak like can understand? Do you have third-party partner articles where you're talking about it? Do you have resources that sales can actually use to tell the same story? And then build and refactor those assets. For each question, make sure you've got a page on your website that's focused on that problem and the stakes. Include FAQ content. You can get technical here. This is where an agency or your web team can start building in schema, but getting the content on your site will make a difference. Third-party proof points, a trade article, a partner website, a case study, a podcast, a PR mention. These are, again, this is where that consistency and voice that Ben was mentioning, having the same message across multiple places will elevate you above people who don't spread their messages clearly. And then one sales-ready artifact, a one-pager, a deck, a short video that's echoing the same language, but helps AI at that consideration and decision-making phase understand the way you talk to your people. And this needs to be accessible. It's not buried. It's not hidden. It's not multiple layers in where you're trying to convince them to give you an email address so that you send them 15 emails. You're getting this information so that the 1 or 2 users who search for it come to you ready to buy. And you can use these questions to pressure test your agency, your internal team's work. Search for these results, search for them again next month, the month after that, see where you're starting to show up and where you're not. There's some tools we can talk about that can help you there. But your goal here is to plan and create content that reaches your audience and amplify that content on outside channels. That will drive that connection with your audience. And then you'll have effective data in hand that you can use to optimize and repeat the cycle for the next question, the next pain point, and then the one after that. And Ben can talk a little bit about how BMP Media helps with stuff like that.
Yeah, this flywheel, as we call it, is basically a demonstration of the areas in which BMP Media as a media and marketing partner can really help. So if it's, you're stuck on doing the research to understand a little bit more about your audience or putting together a plan of personas, we do that in planning. If it's creating content, be it video, text, you name it, we have teams that understand the industry, especially in many trade industries, and can create that content working with you or leveraging what you already have. We have these channels of communities that we can use to reach and amplify and go beyond just the channels that we owned to help you reach and amplify outside them. And we connect. We have events that we lead. We can help you figure out what you need to do to go to an event and make sure that you bring back not just leads, but quality leads that are interested in what you have to say. And then, as Tyler mentioned, it's all about optimization. I mean, if you're not reading the data on what's working and what's not, if you're not looking at what content's getting engagement, and if your sales and marketing team is not working closely together to identify what it is that worked in our marketing to drive that sale, drive that lead all the way through from becoming just an MQL to an SQL to a deal to a sale, then you're actually not truly optimizing at the level that you should. Because if you do that right, it feeds right back into the planning and you can continue to create, reach, and amplify, connect, and optimize over and over again. That's why we call it a flywheel. So we can help in various stages of this. If you're stuck on any of it, we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we jump into the Q&A, which a couple questions that we can answer, but Neil, thank you, Neil, for sharing that. Yeah, it's not about the words on your site. It's about the questions that you answer. And in this case, what I say, and I know our team says, is like, if you can answer a question to a human, like human to human, and you can explain why your service is the right solution for their problem, then the next person who looks for that can find it, and AI will look for that type of information. That's the type of content that AI wants to learn from, and a great way for you to start showing up, not just as like from a marketing speak, but really be a thought leader that will drive that ongoing growth. So there is a little bit of time for questions if anyone has any. And one question I do want to kind of get at is, what tools do we recommend for measuring things here? Ben, I know there's some tools that we would recommend to our clients on the Engage side, but what are the tools you're using to measure what's working for me?
I mean, I'll tell you what, like my favorite of all is honestly to do the homework yourself on the questions and see what's coming up. I think you mentioned this and we talked about quality over quantity, but if anybody leaving this, the first thing I would do, and I said this about SEO 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is just to search up what it is that you would expect that your audience is looking for. How do they ask the question, and see what comes back? What is it that you're seeing in those results? Do you show up? Are you not showing up in there? There are great tools. I mean, some of the standard SEO tools are innovating to help, of course, show the AEO stuff. So you've got SEMrush and all those other tools that are out there that you can kind of evaluate and see. But I don't think anything beats you going through the view that your customer should have, or that you expect your prospect to have, and seeing truly where you're showing up and ranking inside those.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for tools that can kind of measure that, like for you, I mean, honestly, one of the ways to do this is to open a spreadsheet and see what links show up when you search a question each week, each month, and just compare that over time. If you want less manual ways, just about every SEO platform is offering versions of AEO tracking right now. We're using a handful right now because the market's changing so rapidly. But the ones we're using most actively are SE Ranking and Keywords.com's tool. Ahrefs also has a really strong one, and SEMrush as well. All right, Dan has a question. Hey, Dan. So if you have a video or a podcast addressing questions and answers, do you need to provide transcripts for SEO to crawl it, or is AEO different? I would say, as a rule, captions on helps. And if you can go and edit those captions, especially for your branded words, that's an area where we all know how much closed captioning and auto transcription loves to change what you said or who said it. So making sure you've got the captions on the videos on YouTube is at least a bare minimum. But having a post on your website with the transcript added as post content is also really helpful, and can help kind of bridge the gap for some of the contextual things that may be lost by AI crawling the video. I guarantee the AI tools are scanning these videos and pulling all sorts of things out of it that's not just the content. But the easiest way for you to control the message is to make sure you're providing a transcript alongside the actual closed captioning that's loaded. Anything to add there, Ben? Anything else you're seeing?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, we're big into accessibility and ADA compliance, and we've been saying it for a while, but just you want to make sure that anybody with any disability, including, not just beyond humans, but robots that are able to crawl the information, are able to do so in a really easy way. So if you think of it from an accessible standpoint, like, am I making this content accessible to humans of all kinds, as well as robots of all kinds? You're going to pretty much answer the question yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ben. In many ways, trying to do like a web accessibility audit of your site and your marketing is a really good way to figure out what can an AI see, because the accessibility tools, screen readers, things like that are very, very similar to how an AI bot is crawling the content and synthesizing it. All right. I don't see any other questions here, and we're at the 30-minute mark. Really appreciate everyone coming in and joining. If you have any questions or things you're doing that are working well for you and your company, definitely connect with Ben and I on LinkedIn, and we're happy to continue this conversation. Thanks, Ben, for joining, and everybody else.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.